Hello, beautiful people. Hope everybody's had a great week. I want to say thank you guys for your feedback. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. You guys are really awesome. So let's get down to business. I got a bunch of jumbled up thoughts here, so it's probably not going to be very cohesive. But I guess a couple themes I want to try to go over with you this week, and most of it has to do with business. Some of it's on the personal side, but most of my life is business, so a lot of it relates to that. But I noticed some of these trends and some of these topics also bleed over into my personal life. So I understand that there's a common theme there, and that common theme is me. So don't take it personal or anything like that. If I say the wrong thing or whatever. Uh, don't get your panties in a wad about it. But one of the main thing I want to talk about this week, it's been on my mind a lot, is more of a message and a reminder to myself. But you may need to hear this too. But stop trying to please everyone. Stop trying to make everybody happy. This is like the most useless exercise and the biggest waste of energy. I'm still learning this lesson. I'm still somewhat of a people pleaser, and I try to make everybody happy all the time. And just the further along I go, and maybe it's the older that I get, I'm starting to realize that trying to please everyone is just an impossible task, and it's making me, it's frustrating, and it makes me act out of character and do things I shouldn't do. And it makes me chase everybody else's happiness because, in a couple of ways, if somebody's unhappy, it's really hard to say why they're unhappy. Some people are just unhappy all the time with everything. So if I spend my time and energy and effort trying to make them happy, I'm really just chasing a ghost because they're going to be moving the goalpost and the target's always going to change. I think I used the example before that I could run 3 marathons consecutively in a row, and I could get to the finish line of the third race and the third marathon and collapse at the finish line. And somebody's going to be standing there asking me why I'm laying down. Why are you laying down? Why aren't you helping? Why aren't you doing this? And I don't know if I've told you guys this story or not, but the scenario I use has actually happened to me in real life. I used to travel in telecom and install cell phone networks. And at one time, me and my best friend at the time rented a house from his grandmother, and we hadn't been in there very long, couple weeks, maybe a month or something, maybe a couple weeks, couple months. I don't know. It wasn't very long, but we just moved into this place. And I was out of town most of the time, and I would come in town for a weekend here and there. Anyway, I worked nights, so I had, slept during the previous day and got up, drove to work, and in telecom, you typically drive quite a distance to get to your job site. Drove to work, worked all night, and then when I got off, early in the morning, whatever time that was, 6, 7 o'clock, I drove from wherever I was back to Texas. I was probably working in Mississippi or something like that. So, 6, 8 hour drive, something like that. So I'd been up for almost 24 hours. And when I pull up to the house, my best friend's grandmother was like trimming the bushes out front. And I get out of my truck, I grab, a little bit of stuff that I had, to unload out of my truck, my just personal stuff, laptop, clothes, whatever. And she's like trimming the bushes by the sidewalk to the front door. So hey, how are you? Da, 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 da. And I go inside, I close the door, and I go to sleep. Like, I'm completely exhausted. Like I said, I've been up for almost 24 hours. I'd driven quite a ways. I'd worked the night before, worked that night. And the running joke for years and years in their family was whenever she told her side of the story to his family, she was like furious that I didn't, help her basically do the yard work or whatever the case was, or help her trim the bushes or whatever the deal was. So she was furious about that. She told the whole family. She told, my best friend, his mom, which was her daughter. Oh yeah, I was over there doing the yard work, and he comes home and goes in the house and just lays up sorry. That was like the running joke for years and years, that I just laid up sorry. So I tell you that little short story to tell you that no matter what you do, no matter how hard you work, people are always going to have a story. They're always going to have something to say about you. They're always going to have something negative to say. They're always going to have something, bad to say about you. People are going to talk bad about you anyway. People are going to say bad things about you anyway. It doesn't matter how hard you try, how much effort you put in, how much work you do. There will be people that no matter what you do, they will never be happy. They will always look down on you. They will always be negative or upset, or that's just the kind of person they are, where they're just, if you don't do what they think you're supposed to do, they're going to have something bad to say about you. And these people are absolutely everywhere. And I don't mean to say anything bad about his grandma. We ended up, being pretty close by the time we had moved out of this place. But so she's not a bad person. She's not a mean person. Just, her perception was that it's late morning, early afternoon, and I just pull up and go inside and go to sleep. She really had no idea of all the stuff that led up to that moment. So, but I tell you that story just to tell you this, like, there's just people out there you can't make happy, no matter what. Their perception is you should be doing something or saying something or whatever the case is. And if you don't do that thing, then they're going to trash talk you, say bad things about you, tell the whole world what a terrible person you are. So trying to make other people happy is going to wear you out. There's just not enough time. There's not enough hours in the day. There's just no, I have a hard enough time making myself happy. Something I struggle with is just being a happy person. That's just not me. So I have to work really hard to put a smile on my face and go through my day and interact with people and just be nice all day. Like, that's work for me. Some people it's natural. For some people like me, I got to work for it. So whenever I'm out being nice, that's a choice. I want to be out and be happy and be nice and all that. And no matter what, no matter how nice I am and how hard I am trying to be a good person and trying to be nice and trying to be polite and trying, to, act, try to be civil in society and, not say the first nasty thing that comes to mind or not be rude when I get the chance, like actually be thoughtful of other people's feelings and be cautious of what I say and do around other people. No matter how much of that I actually do, again, there's always going to be people that are dissatisfied, always going to be people that are unhappy. And I spent so much time, and I still spend a lot of time chasing other people's happiness, making sure that they have what they need and making sure that they're happy. And it's mentally exhausting because, like I said, I spend so much time trying to make sure that I'm happy and I'm satisfied and I'm in the right mindset that it's so difficult. Like, I think an example would be, just think of how hard it is for you to do the right things for yourself. To make sure you're going to bed at a decent time, make sure you're waking up at a right time, making sure you're exercising, making sure you're eating right, making sure you're on to work on time, make sure you're paying your bills on time, like making sure you're, financially responsible. All these things that you have to do to manage yourself as a human being, how difficult all those things are, and to make all the good choices and all the right choices all the time. It's really difficult. So you see how hard it is for you to tell you what to do and how to do it. It's difficult. It's very difficult to manage life. It's difficult to manage circumstances and situations and all the things you can't control. So you see how hard it is to tell you what to do. Imagine how hard it is to tell somebody else what to do. So if you can't make yourself happy, what chance could you possibly have of making somebody else happy? Like, it's virtually impossible. You can't please other people. And I deal with this in business, and I deal with it in a personal way. I have an on again, off again relationship with somebody that I've known for 10 years. And, I'm sure a lot of y'all can relate to this. When you have a relationship with somebody, for whatever reason, you split up, and as time goes by, whether you miss each other or you reconnect in some way, and the first thoughts that come to your mind that you think of is all the good things, the things that you miss about them, all the good times. And then for whatever reason, you think it's a good idea to start this relationship again. And it doesn't take very long for all those old things to happen that were the cause of your original split. All the bad behaviors, all the whatever the reasons were, it's usually the bad stuff comes out later because you don't think of those things. You think of all the good things, you get back in the relationship, and it doesn't take long for all the bad things to resurface. So I've dealt with this in business and in my personal life, and with this on again, off again relationship, this person is one of those people that you can just not make happy. There's just nothing you can do to make somebody else happy. And I finally realized this the last time around, and I did my best to explain it to her. And I'm like, hey, look, you're not a happy person. I'm not a happy person. I have to work really hard to be happy, and there's nothing you can do to make me happy. Like, I realize that now. When I was younger, I thought it was other people's job to make me happy. I thought it was their job to satisfy my needs and their job to put a smile on my face. I'm not a big smiler. That's something I have to work for. People would ask me all the time, like, why don't you smile? Why, you never smile. You never smile. And my response always was like, I don't have a reason to smile. Like, I'm not smiling. I don't walk around with a dumb grin on my face because I don't have a reason to smile, because I thought it was the world's job to make me smile. And that's not the case. Like, I realized at some point that it's not the world's job to make me happy or make me satisfied. I just have to smile because I want to smile. That's who I want to be. I want to be a smiling person. I want to be a happy person. And the world cannot give that to me. A person cannot give that to me. A business, a personal relationship, a girlfriend, a wife, nothing can give me a smile. I have to make myself smile. So when I bring my ex into it, that's the situation is I'm a difficult person to make happy. And I realize that that's my responsibility and solely my responsibility. And this last go around, that's sort of where the conversation sort of, when we finally, split, was like, you're not a happy person. I'm not a happy person. You are in a situation where I was, how many ever years ago, where I felt like the world was supposed to make me happy. You come to this relationship with the expectation that I'm supposed to make you happy. I was like, and I can't do that. I wish it was that simple. I wish it was that easy. But any effort I make to make you happy is a vain effort. It's an empty effort, because it's always an act of some sort of service, or act of some sort of gift, or act of some sort of doing that to me leads to exhaustion, because I have to do, this thing in the morning that makes you happy. And then 30 minutes later, I have to do this thing. And 15 minutes later, I have to do this thing. And an hour later, I got to do this thing. It's like, it's all these hoops I have to jump through that make you happy. And if I don't do the thing, then you're not happy. That is an impossible situation to put yourself in. If someone's relying on you to do things or say things to make them happy, you are basically a slave to their emotions. Whatever their emotional state is, you basically belong to them. They're basically saying that you have to do X, Y, and Z at X, Y, at such and such time to make them happy. And if you don't do such and such thing or say such and such thing, that they're not happy. And that person is going to make your life miserable, because they're a miserable person, and that's going to run off on you and in the relationship. So kind of getting sidetracked, but circling back, basically just, if this person is expecting me to make them happy, that is a dead end. There's just no way. I'm trying to let her know, like, I'm working my hardest to try to be a happy person. I'm doing my best to be a happy person. And I want to meet somebody and be with somebody that is either already a happy person or working on themselves to make themselves a happy person. So we're basically just two happy people that got together, and I'm not relying on you to make me happy, and you're not relying on me to make you happy. And this is a concept that, for whatever reason, she would not grasp. She would not get a hold of this concept. So obviously, that, to me, that's a dead end relationship, and that's a whole nother story. But I hope you get the idea and the concept of what I'm saying, is that in a relationship, you cannot have somebody or one or two people relying on the other person for their happiness. It's a dead end road. And I see this a lot in business too. And I made some notes. I talked to a lot of other people that own, operate, run businesses, whether they're working for a company and they're in management, or they're actually self-employed. They have their own company. Some people are own a job, and some people own a company in our business. When I say own a job, it's basically you're self-employed and you don't have any employees. But one of those examples, for instance, is somebody that I had not seen in a couple of years. She's actually the wife of a customer of mine at the shop. She started, in the past couple of years since I've seen her, she started her own housekeeping business. And she just happened to come by the furniture store the other day, and we got to talking about her business and how things are going. And she was just sort of venting to me about her frustrations in this business and what she's dealing with and how things are going. And she explained to me in a couple of ways about a particular customer she has difficulty with. So she cleans, say, for instance, doctor's offices or something. She's like, I have all these customers. I stay pretty busy. I'm pretty happy with it. We're growing. I'm looking for help. All good things as a young business owner. And she's like, I've got this one customer that I just cannot make them happy. They're always saying I don't do this right. They're always saying I don't do that right. I'm always, da da da. And I was like, then you have to, at some point, you have to decide if this relationship works for you. Like, are you, because you own this company or because you own your own business, like, are you just going to constantly keep going back to this relationship and putting yourself through this if they're just not happy all the time? If they have, and again, it's not necessarily that you're doing anything wrong, and maybe you're doing a bad job. I can't say that for sure either. But if either you are doing a bad job and they don't like it, or you're doing your best and they don't like it, either way, they don't like it. How much longer can you put yourself through this for this work, for this money? you're going to have to replace this customer somehow, some way, or replace this means of income somehow, some way, because this customer is making you miserable. All your other customers don't seem to have an issue or seem to have a problem. That doesn't mean there's something wrong with your customer, but maybe you're not right for them or they're not right for you. But at some point, you're going to have to make that decision, because they're going to fire you probably at some point when they find somebody cheaper, they find somebody better, whatever the case is. So how much longer are you going to suffer to try to make this particular customer happy? And she's like, yeah, I've got all these other things going on. I've got this other bid in with this other office. They have like 12 offices. And I'm like, yeah, you need to focus more of your time and attention on this potential customer than this one that you can't make happy. So I know that's kind of a roundabout way of saying the same thing, but how much time, here comes a train. How much time and energy how much sleep is this woman going to lose over this client? How much sleep is she going to lose over this customer? And the thing is that she's not going to get any referrals from these people. They're not going to tell other people to use her. So this one job is this one job, and they're not happy with her. And again, I don't know if she's doing a good job or not. I'm just going to assume she's doing an okay job, and they're particular, which is fine. I have particular customers, and particular customers are in every industry. But if you can't meet these people's needs, whatever they are, then somebody's going to have to break it off. That's just the reality of it, because this can't go on forever. So you might have to make the first move and just tell them, hey, look, I've done my best. I'm not making you guys happy. This is causing me a lot of stress, and I'm going to refer you to one of my competitors, or whatever the case is. However you end the relationship, whatever you have to do to make sure the customer still gets their needs met. But it removes the stress from your life. So another example of that is, I had and I guess I'll kind of segue into another sort of topic I had about stop trying to please everyone. The other side of that is stop trying to please everyone, but also you need to know your worth. You need to know your value. And I hate that social media sort of hijacks, phrases, and it just makes everything so commercial and plain and bland, and things get spread around so much they really don't have any meaning at all. But knowing your worth matters a lot, and especially if you're in business. And a lot of times this bleeds over into personal relationships too. Like if you're in a relationship that someone doesn't value you, like that's a big problem. Like you need to understand that this person doesn't value you. So the lady that had her housekeeping business, she was also talking about what to charge and this and that. And I was just like, hey, you need to charge a fair rate. If you're trying to be the cheapest, you're going to give yourself a whole nother headache associated with being at the bottom of the price scale than you are pricing yourself fair. Like if you do a good job, price yourself fair. You obviously can't charge the most out there, but you need to be pricing yourself fair, because in business, there's all sort of things you cannot predict. There's things you have no control over whatsoever. There's all sort of market conditions. There's also all sort of scenarios that as a business owner, you have no control over. There's a lot of randomness to the market that you cannot do anything about. I said, however, there are things that you can control. And if you, and there's always a possibility that you're going to go out of business. And that's in whatever industry you're in, no matter what kind of company you run, there's always a probability or possibility that you're going to go out of business. The statistics on business failure, small business failure, are everywhere on the internet. You don't have to try real hard to find them. Small businesses fail all day, every day, for lots and lots and lots of reasons. But one thing I told her, she needed to make sure she was established with what she was doing. She had, she was doing a good job. She had the right tools. She had the right equipment. She had the right plan. She had the right model. I said, but once you've gone through the education process of learning and understanding your industry, I was like, you need to understand that there's always the risk of going out of business, but you don't need to compound that problem by not charging enough for your service. If you're going to go out of business, you need to go out of business because you charge too much, not because you charge too little. Because it's so much easier to correct if you realize at some point in your business model that you're charging too much. That is so much easier to fix than it is you've been charging too little, especially once you've done it for a very long time. If you get a bunch of clients that you're undercharging, it's eating up all of your time. As you get new clients, even if you decide you're going to charge them slightly more, all of your time is getting eaten up by your customers that you're giving a discounted rate to. So I said, hey, look, there's a lot of stress and worry and problems and issues that come along with owning a business, but you need to charge more if you want to make this work. And I know that's a hard step to take, and that's a difficult thing to do, especially when you're new and young and it's early in your business. But I just told her, I was like, hey, you need to know that if you're going to go out of business because of financial reasons, you need it be because you charge too much, not too little. And that's, like I said, that's a very difficult thing to do, especially when you're early on and things are new and you're figuring things out. But you need to get to a place where that makes sense to you. And this also comes to, and again, this is, back to tying this to personal relationships. The same thing needs to apply. Like, if you are not in a relationship, you need to not be in a relationship because you value yourself to a high degree, not because you don't think you're worthy of a relationship. Like that, those are two completely different realms and worlds to live in your mind. Now, I'm not saying you should walk around with your nose in the air and think you're better than people or whatever the case is, but you need to not go out on every single date or date every single person or give your number out to anybody of the opposite sex, or I guess I can't even say that right now. Or give your number out to anybody that's looks in your direction or shows interest in you or whatever the case is. Like that says you have no value. You don't value yourself. Like, you're not even being particular about who you spend your time with. Because once you give your information to somebody, like, you're now at calling, texting, social media, whatever the case is, your time is valuable, and you're spending your time connected to this person in one way or another. And if you don't value yourself to a high degree, or at least enough to where you value and know your worth, then if you're going to give your time to just any old buddy, then that's probably not going to work out for you in the long run. Like, at that point, you're just hoping to get lucky. You're basically playing the relationship lottery. Hey, I'm just going to give my number to everybody and hope I hit the jackpot. Like, that's not a good way to go about dating or meeting people or being in a relationship. Like, you need to know your worth. You need to set your standards where they belong. And it's better to be single because you're particular and you're choosy about who you want to spend your time with than it is to be single because you don't value yourself or your time or you don't value yourself enough to see what you're worth to another person and see what you're worth in a relationship or whatever the case is. So, trying to figure out how to segue into the next note I have. So with the knowing your worth, like I said, I talked to other business owners and different, whether they're in management or own their own business. There's another guy I talked to quite a bit. He's a customer at our furniture store. And him and his wife come in and they buy furniture, but he owns a diesel repair shop. And we talk a lot about business. He's a young guy. I ask him how he's doing, how things are going. I try to give him little bit of advice wherever I can, or if I think he could, use some, just some uplifting type words to, if he's struggling with something. He does a great job. He's super smart. He's really young. I mean, brilliant kid. I mean, he's doing really well for himself, and he's going to have a great career. I mean, he's really young and he's really smart. He knows what he's doing. He's just, he's young. You make mistakes because you just don't know, but he's doing a great job. But he came by the furniture store today and we were talking. He's got a customer because I always ask him, what's going on? What's the story? He's got a customer, brought his truck in, and a high pressure fuel pump basically exploded in this truck. And those repairs are not simple and they're expensive, and it's not just a matter of replacing the pump. You got to replace a bunch of other stuff related to the fuel system, because when those things explode, there's just basically shrapnel all through your fuel system that's got to be cleaned out, and replacing the fuel lines, things like that, solve that problem. So he's got a customer that brought this truck in. It's got this problem. The total repair is like $9,500. Obviously, it's a lot of money. People freak out when they hear that. Now, anybody that knows a lot about diesels or is in the diesel, in the diesel marketplace, diesel repairs are outrageous. They're super expensive. They're just expensive repairs. And that's any diesel, every diesel. So it sounds like this customer is not super familiar with his truck, because he is like freaking out, panicking about this $9,500 ticket. And the technician that's doing this owns his own company. This is not like a shade tree mechanic. This guy's not like duct tape it together. I'm going to buy the factory parts. I'm going to fix it right. And your problem's going to be solved. And I guarantee it. So he's that type of guy. And for his age, he's way ahead of his time. So he tells me today that this customer just cannot come to grips with this. He said I've had 10 phone conversations with him, and this guy and the customer doesn't really understand the problem with the truck, but he's also not understanding the problem with the amount of time he's consuming of this guy, of the shop owner. He's not understanding that every time he gets this guy on the phone, that this guy's losing money every time he has to explain to him what's going on and why it's happening and what's best and all this. So he said like, we've had about 10 phone conversations. He said the last couple of phone conversations have pretty much gone that. So to give you an idea, the parts to repair this truck, to buy them from the Ford dealer, is like $6,500. And he does have a markup in that too, but it's about $6,500 for the parts and about $3,000 worth of labor. So the guy, was going over the ticket, for like the 10th time, but he's like, hey, I found the same kit online for $4,500. And I guess somehow he was showing him the kit. I don't know if he texted it to him or whatever the case is, but the shop owner, his name is Nick, is like, hey, this is not the same kit. The factory dealer kit is by Bosch. And the guy was like, yeah, that's Bosch. And I forget the generic name. He said, no, that's, Bushnet or something, some goofy name that was not Bosch. He's like, no, that's not a Bosch kit. That's a Bushnet or whatever the name was. He's like, no, it's not the same thing. Like if we put this on your truck and it doesn't work, like you're going to have to pay to do it again. If we put this on your truck and it blows up in 3 months, you're going to have to do it again. Like you're trying to save $200 to possibly have to do a $10,000 job twice. He's like, I can't warranty that. He said, if I buy the parts and I buy them from the Ford dealer and I put them on your truck and something goes wrong in whatever his warranty period is in X amount of time, like Ford's going to pay for it. It doesn't cost you a dime for me to fix it. You bring it here, we fix it, Ford pays for it, you're back on the road. I was like, if you order this thing online and it doesn't fit, if it doesn't work, if your truck doesn't start, he goes, you're in the same boat. And the guy still was just so persistent. He's like, no, I'm going to do it. I'm going to order it. Well, so Nick is finally like, hey, okay, I'm just warning you. I'm just telling you, I wouldn't do it. I don't recommend it. If you want me to put that on your truck, he goes, we don't really do customer supplied parts because we do rely on markup on parts to cover some of our overhead here. But if you insist, then if that's what you want, that's what we'll do. So the customer calls him back a day or two later and says, hey, man, they're charging me $1,000 core charge. So those of you that aren't familiar with a core charge, basically on some parts on cars, the manufacturer wants the old part that you're taking off, they want that part back in exchange for the new part so they can rebuild it, remanufacture it, whatever it is. Alternators, starters, batteries are really popular for this. So they charge you a core charge, which is an extra charge on top of the cost of the part. And then when you return the old parts, the bad parts, they will refund you your core charge. So the core charge on this kit was $1,000. So he calls Nick back, the customer calls Nick back and says, hey, this thing's like they're going to charge me $1,000 core charge. He's like, and then Nick has to explain to him what a core charge is and why this works and how this happens and da-da-da. And Nick's like, see, that's why we charge what we charge, is because you don't have to worry about any of this. This would have been, if you just would have said, hey, go fix my truck, your truck would have been fixed a week ago. But here we are, phone call after phone call after phone call, and we're having to go through this process of me explaining to you how this works. So yes, Ford charges a core charge. So I pay the core charge when I buy your parts. And then when I take everything apart on my time, I take all the stuff, I box it up, send it back to Ford, and I get my core charge back. You never see it. It never hits it comes out of my pocket up front. And then I get my money back when the job is done and I get them their parts back. So Nick goes through that whole thing. And the guy says, okay, well, will you guys pull my truck in, take all the parts off of my truck, send them to this parts manufacturer, and then they'll send us the new stuff so I don't have to pay the core charge. I mean, it's just round and round and round and round with this guy. So basically, long story longer, the conversation with Nick is like, hey, Nick understands how ridiculous this is. He knows that this customer doesn't seem to understand how this is supposed to work. And this is part of owning a diesel. This problem, and the customer, several times was asking him about the problem with the car. And Nick said, hey, look, this is a problem that these motors have had for like 8 years. So go anywhere on a web browser, go anywhere on YouTube, search your truck, search this problem. It's everywhere. This happens all the time. The customer seems to think that this is like an isolated incident that just happened to him, and it's the end of the world because it's happening to him, and he just can't see anything outside of that. But anyway, so long story longer, Nick is at a point where he's like, I'm trying to do the right thing. I'm trying to fix this car right. This guy's making it as difficult as possible, to fix this truck. And he goes, I can already tell you, I've already told him that I'm going to put these parts on this guy's truck. It's probably not going to run right. It's never going to run right. And if these parts go on this truck and the truck runs, it's not going to run for very long, because these remanufactured high pressure fuel pumps, they're not built to factory standard. It can't be. So part of me telling you that is, again, like knowing your worth. Like Nick knows that a lot of his value and why they charge what they charge is to have the expertise and have the education and know what to do and when to do it and how to do it. I'm sure a lot of people have heard this story, and I'm a horrible storyteller. So I forget how it goes, but apparently there was some large ship at sea or something, and one of these big, huge engines had quit working. So the captain and the mechanic went down underneath the boat, but went down to the engine room and tried to work on this engine. Couldn't get it working. They called everybody that had a mechanical ability on staff to try to figure out why this engine wouldn't run. Well, I guess they found out that somebody on the ship knew about that particular engine or knew how to fix it. So that guy that they went and found him, brought him down to the engine room, and the guy diagnosed the problem, went and picked up a hammer, and he went and hit on a particular spot, and the engine fired up. So then the ship continues on its way. Well, when the guy got home, the guy that fixed the ship, when he got home, he sent a handwritten letter and a bill to the people that own the ship for like $10,000 or something. And the owner of the ship thought that was an extravagant amount to fix the ship by just picking up a hammer and hitting something and making the engines fire back up. So the owner of the ship responded to him by letter and said, hey, $10,000, that's an awful lot of money for somebody that spent 2 minutes looking at this engine and hitting it with a hammer. So he mailed the guy the letter and said, hey, let's work out a better deal because $10,000 is too much. So the guy got the letter and he reads it and he responds by letter. So obviously the story happened a long time ago because they're responding by letter. But the guy that fixed the ship responded by letter, and he rewrote the bill. And he said, hammer, $5, knowing where to swing the hammer, $9,995, sending the bill back for $10,000. So that's exactly what it is about knowing your worth. Some people know what to do, when to do it, how to do it, and that is where their value is. So this diesel technician, the guy that owns his own shop, his prices are set in a way that, one, they've got overhead, they've got bills to pay, they've got technicians to pay, they need to make a profit. If they're not in the charity business, they're there to make money, and he's there to earn a living, and he's really good at what he does, and that costs money. And to have somebody fix it right and put the correct parts on your car is expensive. And no, of course, nobody likes that, but that's the reality of it. And Nick very much understands his worth in this situation, and he gets customers from time to time that don't understand his worth, and he's got to go through this education process. And again, a lot of times he's wasting his breath because the customers are never going to see and never understand where the value actually is in what he does. It's a thankless job in a lot of ways. It happens. That's just part of being an automotive repair. It's something we deal with here at the shop every single day, where I can't tell you how many times in my career I've had people get frustrated, upset, yell, scream, throw tantrums, go online and find the same part that we quoted them for $250. They'll go find it for $175 and tell me I'm a criminal and I'm a crook because they found a part online for $75 less than what we quoted them. So this happens all the time. And early on, I used to take it personal. I used to get, not really mad or upset about it, but I used to take it personal that they basically will treat you like you're lying to them. Like, oh, you're overcharging me because I found the same thing for $175 and you're charging me $250. This is something that I used to deal with a lot, and it still happens all the time, but I deal with it differently now. Because again, even if you find the same name brand, the same part, the same everything on a website somewhere, there's all sort of things that, again, people don't see behind the scenes in the business and in the industry. So for instance, if you find that same part, let's just use Amazon for an example. You find this exact same part on Amazon. Okay, I can get it in an hour. Amazon, we might get it tomorrow. It might be the next day. So time has to be worth something. So the fact that I can get it in an hour and we got to wait 2 days for your part, that's got to mean something. If I open up the box of the part that I order from the auto parts place and I open up the box and it's the wrong part, let's say they send me a left and it's supposed to be a right, I can get a new one in an hour. If I open up the one from Amazon and if it's a left and it should be a right, I got to go to the Amazon website. I got to figure out this problem. I got to return this thing. I got to exchange this thing. I got to order another one. I got to wait another 2 days. Let's say, for example, the one I get from my vendor. If I put this part on your car and it doesn't work, if it doesn't solve the problem, if it's defective out of the box, happens all the time in automotive repair. Defective parts out of the box happen all the time. If that's defective, I can get a new one in an hour. If we put the part on your car from Amazon and that part's no good, I can't get a new one in an hour. Got to go through the process. Got to return it, exchange it, wait a day, wait 2 days, whatever the case is. If the part that I put on your car fails, and our warranty is 3 years, 36,000 miles. If the part that I put on your car fails in 3 years of 36,000 miles, you bring your car to me and it doesn't cost you a dime. It doesn't cost you a thing. You don't pay a dime to fix it. The warranty process and the company that I bought the part from, we work it out. They don't pay us our normal rates, but they make it fair enough for us to do the job and us not get hurt by it. And they replace the part for free. If the same thing happens on your Amazon part, if this thing fails in 6 months, I can't warranty it. Why would I warranty it? It's not my part. It's not a part that I sold you. You bought this part online. So if it fails again, you're at very minimum, you're paying labor again. And then you got to decide how you want to handle this part. Do you want to buy another one on Amazon? Do you want to, and even if they do have a warranty, what do you think their warranty process is going to be like? Are they going to ship it back? Are they going to send you another one without even knowing that the one that we originally have is bad? It's a whole nother animal. So there's value in each and every one of those things with the relationship we have with our part suppliers. And again, for $75, is it worth going through this probability of issues, or is it worth going through the system that works, the channels that work, the warranty that works? And for me, the $75 is worth it. And another sort of example of that is if, let's say, we put this part on your car and, well, I'll use an exact example. I was trying not to use an exact example, but I will. Recently, we had this happen at our shop. Customer's been with us before. They always beat us up whenever we give them a quote. Every single time we give them a quote, they beat us up. Oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, every single time. So again, I don't know why they use us if they complain about the price every single time. So they brought a truck in, a work truck with 260 something thousand miles on it. It needed an alternator. We quoted them an alternator. They call us back an hour later and say, well, we found one on I don't even want to say the name of the parts place. They found one on some parts place website that was like $50 or $60 cheaper than the one we quoted them. And we flat out told them we don't use those parts. They're not quality parts. Those are remanufactured, no good parts. And we use OE quality parts that I can warranty for 3 years and 36,000 miles. And that part I can't warranty because it's not a quality part. Well, we don't care. We want it on there. Okay. So we order the part that they wanted on there, saved them whatever it was, 50, 60 bucks, put that part on there. And I think it was probably 3 months later, 3 months, something like that. That part caught fire and it almost burnt their truck to the ground. So yeah, they saved 40, 50, 60 bucks. Sure they did. Yeah. But it almost cost them their entire vehicle. Right. So sometimes knowing your worth is difficult to explain to people. And whether it's the housekeeper or whether it's, Nick, the diesel technician, or us explaining to our customers, it's really difficult to explain to other people what you're worth. Some people just don't get it. They're never going to get it. They're going to fight you every step of the way. But then there's other people, the right people, that know your worth. They understand your worth. They want their problem solved and they trust you to fix it. And the same thing goes in relationships. There are certain people that you don't have to try to fill their cup all the time and make them happy. There are certain people that don't require you to make them happy all the time. I ran into a guy today. See how I'm doing on time. Oh my gosh, I'm way over on time. A couple more minutes anyway. I'm already this far in. I ran into a guy, and this is about knowing your worth and stop trying to please everybody, but knowing your worth. I ran into it. So at the furniture store, we do a rustic furniture. Everything's made by hand. Everything's real wood, but it's rustic farmhouse wood furniture. Okay. Had a guy come in yesterday, day before, today. I don't know. All my days run together, but this guy came in, and sometimes you can tell when somebody's going to be really particular just by the way they handle themselves and the questions they ask. And I could tell this guy was going to be really particular. Cool, no problem. There's particular customers. Some people want it to look a certain way. Some people want it to be a certain way. Cool, I'm down with that. I'll help you. If I can help you find it, I will help you find it. If I can help you fix your car, whatever particular way you want it fixed, I'll do what I can to help you. So I could tell this guy was going to be particular. He came in. He was asking particular questions, and by the time the guy left, he didn't buy a piece of furniture, but before he left, we were talking about very specifically what he needed. And he's like, yeah, he goes, yeah, that's basically what it came down to was the piece that he wanted was 10 inches too short. It was 50 inches. He needed it 60. He's like, I want that exact piece, but I need it 10 inches longer. I don't have it. I can't get it, but I told him I'll talk to a builder, see what I can make happen. But anyway, as he's leaving, he's like, hey, I'll come back. I'll come back another time, see what you have. He said, he goes, but I really like your guys' stuff. He goes, I'm a cabinet maker. He goes, I have a 10,000 square foot shop. We make cabinets all day long. I forgot how many people he had on his staff of woodworkers that make cabinets for him. He said, I could not build what you have here for what you're selling it for. He's like, I couldn't build it. He said, if I have one of my guys build it, it's going to cost me so much in labor. It'll cost me 2 or 3 times what you're charging for this piece to have one of my guys build it. And he said, and if I build it, he said, it's not worth my time. He goes, my time is, I'm so wrapped up running my business. If I slow down or stop, he goes, I can't recoup the amount of money. He goes, it's better for me just to come in here and buy this because this makes more sense than me spending my time building it or paying one of my guys to do it. He said, so that in a nutshell is what I mean by you have to find people that understand and know your worth. So whether you're a housekeeper, whether you're a diesel mechanic, whether you're an automotive mechanic, whatever the case is, whether you're in the furniture business or whether you're in a relationship you shouldn't be in, like you have to know your worth. And there are people out there that get it. And yes, I understand sometimes those people are hard to find. Sometimes it feels like they don't exist, but I promise you they're out there. I promise you there are people willing to pay you what you're worth. And there's also people out there willing to treat you the way you deserve. So I rambled on way too long tonight, probably making up for last week when I didn't talk very long. But anyway, stop trying to please everybody. Know your worth and don't give up. Don't give up. Keep going. Know your worth and stop trying to please everybody. So I hope you guys have a great week. Y'all take care. I love you. Bye.